Welcome. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. Good morning. I'm Jennifer Gross, CEO of American Friends of Tel Aviv University. I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, Innovations in Learning, How Tel Aviv University is Leading the Way, featuring Professor Liat Kishon Rabin, Dean of Tel Aviv University's new academic unit, Innovation in Teaching and Learning. Tel Aviv University is reimagining the classroom, a particularly relevant endeavor given the fast-paced digital world in which we live. To succeed, it is clear that students will need more than just academic knowledge. They will require soft skills and the ability to communicate in order to be successful in their careers and to be productive citizens. In her role as Dean of the new Innovation in Teaching and Learning Unit, Professor Kishon Rabin oversees how academics at Tel Aviv University are taught and personalized in a digital world. She and her team have developed protocols that ensure TAU graduates are better equipped for success, as well as ensuring that the teaching staff can communicate effectively in a virtual world. She is charged with overseeing TAU's place and role in the digital world. In addition to being a newly appointed dean, Professor Kishon Rabin is a professor in the Department of Communications Disorders. Her research in communication focuses on speech perception and psychoacoustics. She has published over 70 peer-reviewed articles and several book chapters on speech science. Professor Kishon Rabin has established numerous programs, including the first program offering a master's in communications in the ultra-Orthodox community in Israel. She has also established outreach programs in language intervention. Tel Aviv University was the first Israeli university to pivot fully to remote learning. Professor Kishon Rabin and her team have been tasked with optimizing the value of a Tel Aviv University education, utilizing traditional and non-traditional methods to optimize learning. To give you a sense of the magnitude of what Professor Kishon Rabin and her team oversaw this past year, here are a few facts about online learning at Tel Aviv University during Corona. There were 50,000 lecture hours recorded. 93,000 Zoom classes were held during the spring semester alone. There was a 50% increase in enrollment in Tel Aviv University's free global online courses. It wasn't just making Zoom classes available. Tel Aviv University implemented a holistic approach, including educating professors to ensure that they were able to effectively communicate information to students. Under Professor Kishon Rabin's direction, Tel Aviv University is evolving and implementing proactive initiatives that will better prepare students for the future. Today, we will be hearing from Professor Kishon Rabin about Tel Aviv University's changes and new projects, and have the opportunity to learn about the exciting educational improvements happening on campus. It is now my pleasure to introduce Professor Liat Kishon Rabin.
So hello, everybody. It's good morning to you. It's good afternoon here. And it's a really, truly a pleasure to be here And thank you very much, Jennifer, for this amazing introduction. I'm not sure I can fulfill everything you've said, or we're definitely striving for it. I'm not sure we're actually are there already. For those who don't know me, and I'm sure some of you kind of raised their eyebrows saying, why would a professor of communication disorders be dean in innovation in teaching and learning? And I asked myself that question too when I was first offered the job before COVID, actually. It's worth mentioning that. And I decided that I'll give you a couple of slides, a little bit about myself, because I'm the one who believe truly that we are some of the things that we've experienced. And I think that what I've been doing over the last few decades at exactly 30 years actually at Tel Aviv University, 31 years at Tel Aviv University since I came back from the graduate school in City University, New York, where I finished my PhD. I think that the sum of all these experiences have influenced immensely what I'm doing now, how I'm thinking. And I thought I'd share a few slides about that before I kind of go into the material itself, and also let you ask some questions. So I'm going to see if I can share the screen here. Jennifer, are we okay?
Perfect.
Okay, let me
Maybe we
see
can just make it a little bit bigger.
There we go.
Perfect.
This is okay. So who am I is actually a big philosophical question, so I'm going to make it very simple. I thought I'd just think about what I'm doing during the day and how I'm exerting my waking hours. And over the years, I can say that pretty much, maybe a little bit boring, but I pretty much can say that the first few years in my career at Tel Aviv University, I was spent a lot of as a mom. You can see here my 3 kids about 25 years ago. They're twins. The 2 on the left are twins, a boy and a girl, and then the younger one is a boy. And then I think the last 20 years, the last 2 decades, I've been spending much more time as a researcher educator, the communication disorders department and research in the area. It is an outdated, by the way, an outdated CV. I guess I should update it because we're now over 100 papers, so that's a good thing. And my administrative positions over time, which have also influenced. There are a few other things that if I have a chance, I'll talk to you about. I have a mom who was a teacher, an English teacher, and I think she really was beyond her time, before her time, the way she taught, very unique ways. And that's something that's interesting too. If I will just say a few words, what it is that I learned from my children that I can take heavily to what I'm doing now is that definitely each child has its own path, even twins, born the same genetic, same family, same environment, but each one of them has a very different path. Both have high IQs, but they learn differently, very differently. One read holistically, the other one analytically, sound by sound. Everything was very different, and also very different from mine. So we can't expect students to be the same way. They need space to flourish. We need to back up, give them time and their own space and time to develop. Give them the responsibilities. And that's something very important that I'm not sure we're doing enough as students, because once you give them those responsibilities, they'll show you what they can do. But we have to do it the correct way. Motivation, interest, and fun is definitely encouraging learning. And I know you all know this, but sometimes I think even I, as a professor, as an educator, as a teacher, sometimes we lose it on the way, and we have to remember, if you really want to encourage learning, not teaching, it's the learning we want to encourage. And something that's really important, and this is something that we want to instill now with our teachers, is that students or children need mentoring, feedback, and role models to advance learning. You can't just give back a project and say, that was good, that's an A, that's a B, that's a C. You have to invest in correcting it so that it actually can improve it and do better for the next time. So these things need to be taken into account. Something that my kids definitely taught me is that education is much more than good grades. You would think I would know this by myself, but my parents were from the old school. Grades are very, very important. And they show that there's a lot of other things and you can get good grades even when you do other things, as long as they're happy with what they're doing. One caring teacher made the whole difference. So if you have, and this is very true about my young one, when you have one teacher who really cares about what you do, even if you fall back, you make sure that you're there to put them up back on your feet. Why is that different from students? Are there students who have a difficult time? They may be they have personal issues. It could be related to academics, but not to academics only. We have to make sure that we're there for them, and the way we build our curriculum should be taken that into account. One of the most important things I think that I've learned over the years with my kids is that they developed many more soft skill and competencies in the Army than they did in formal education. And that's something that I feel like we need to try to adapt from more of what the Army does to those kids. They come out with confidence, they're willing to, they show leadership, they think out of the box, they know how out of some to express themselves, to present themselves. So I asked them, you know, what they do, they show you what to do? So they tell me, Mom, if I have to sit there and explain to a room full of high brass what I'm doing and what I'm developing, of course I'm going to improve on my presentation skills. So clearly they do a lot of things there. They get a lot of support to do it in terms of, this is what you have to do, go do it, you'll be great. And they do it. And I think that's something that we have to learn, but it's constantly interactive and interactions. Other thing I've learned from my kids and from their friends is that these youngsters, we think they don't care, but they care a lot. They're interested in people, in the environment, in values. So when we have a curriculum or curricula, we have to make sure that if they're interested in this, and this is good for our community and for environment and for our country, let's make sure that this is part of their studies as well. And this is something I had to share with you, is that they confessed that the best thing that I did for them was not to have a TV at home. And I know they cried a lot about it, that I won't let a TV at home. And they said, Mom, just so you know, that if we had a TV at home, we would have passively sat there and do nothing instead of doing what we've been doing, which was a lot of outdoors activities and a lot of other hobbies. And true now that they're into the computer, so it's a different world, but at the time, this was an important thing. And again, something to take home. What about my research? What did I learn from my research that is worthwhile and to look into when we talk about teaching and innovation? So my research deals about brain plasticity. How does the brain change when we have auditory deprivation? And how does it learn again once we get back, give back at least some of the auditory information via cochlear implants or hearing aids? So this is a learning process for these infants that are now have to learn again with new types of auditory information. So something that, again, may not be surprised, but we don't see that much implemented, is that if there's personalized medicine and personalized habilitation, and we know that it works, we definitely should have personalized learning. No one size fits all. Active interaction is extremely important for learning and brain development. And we know that it's also true for the aging, because once they stop interaction, they know they're higher risk for dementia. So this active interaction, it could be communication, it could be engagement in anything that helps them add information, add knowledge, improve skills. That's learning. And it needs to be constant interaction. Passive learning is not learning. Again, not surprising, motivation and interest facilitates learning. So we have to, that's why we're saying that the student has to be at the center. What interests him? And then we can build what it is that we want them to learn and develop around things that may interest him. Some issues, let's say if you learn certain ideas, don't bring them examples that are not relevant to them. Try to bring up things that are relevant, and then they can be a better learner. Importance for generalization of learning to new situations. it may not be a surprise, but we still have exams that all they do is talk about or assess what information that was taught. But what we're interested in is in how do we implement it into new things. And this is not that simple, and that's something that needs to be considered. Appropriate intervention can overcome many deficits. Remember, this is our research in auditory rehabilitation. And it turns out that in order to do a good job and to overcome even severe deficits, if you know how to integrate all the available knowledge, and there's a lot of knowledge around, you have teamwork from different disciplines, you think out of the box, and you know how to solve problems and you know where to go in order to solve them, this brings a lot of good ideas that overcome these deficits. And I think this is something we can be proud of in our area in auditory rehabilitation. And one of the last things that I wanted to share with you, because this is both interesting, I think, and important, we're coming now with a paper, but this has been also, previous paper was also published by Professor John Parco, an MD and ENT doctor that has died a few years ago, a young ENT that has died and headed the ENT department at Johns Hopkins. And he showed, and what he said was that if you come from the right family, even if you have a severe hearing loss, and you got the appropriate intervention, you're much better off, and he showed the data, than somebody, a child who was born totally healthy, but has environmental deprivation, not enough language interaction, not enough environmental stimulation. So those children who are hearing impaired can and did show better performance than those from low socioeconomic status, although they were totally healthy, but didn't get the right stimulation. And this is something that we need to think about, because we don't want also our students to make sure that they get all the possibilities and not leave anybody behind. But as Jennifer mentioned, I did have other roles, both heading department, head of School of Health Professions, at the Higher Council of Education, the community outreach program, which I established and still head of. So, and the ultra-Orthodox program. So I've taken from those roles, first of all, the diversity of students. We need to make sure that we account for all of them, those with different entry levels, cultural backgrounds, and so forth. I've encountered many teaching methods, a lot of great innovative ideas. Nobody heard about them. Why? Because each professor kept it to themselves. So clearly we need to reach out to those and have a much more interaction between us and being able to disseminate it to more of the campus. I also learned that we need to give autonomy. We can't tell people what to do, but we can give them opportunities, I mean, professors and faculty to see what it is that's appropriate for them. Interdisciplinary exchange is extremely fruitful and results in good ideas. Something very important, and I think Jennifer mentioned that we need to definitely be proactive with what we believe in. No one is going to do it for us. So if there's something we believe in, we have to go for it, not wait for somebody else. We do have wonderful staff members and have great ideas. And actually, a lot of them are willing to volunteer and to be part of this amazing project that we're now doing. How do we address the new era of teaching and learning? And the experience shows that it gives us some kind of a framework of the do's and don'ts at Tau and at the higher education in Israel. And that's something that definitely helps us move forward. Where can we move more forward, and where do we have to wait a bit before we bring our fantasies into reality? So having all that said, now maybe like I've learned over I'm almost in July, I'm a year in this position, and every day I think more and more how everything of what I've experienced over life has put me together where I am now. So where I was, at least when I was offered the job before COVID, actually, I was still head of the School of Health Professions. The university really had, and still has in many places, two major roles, as you know. One is to create knowledge via research, and a lot of the emphasis was on that. I think Tel Aviv University, I don't have to tell you, has definitely showed that it was able to do that extremely well, both in its world ranking, in the grants, and in the development of many new and novel ideas. In terms of the other role is to disseminate knowledge via teaching. I think this is something that we're ready for years now, years with a Y, not years. Now, we knew that our role as a teacher in teaching, especially this face-to-face blackboard standing and lecturing out is fading out. But we knew that was fading out because we had threats that we were not blind to them. But we didn't do much about it. Those threats to higher education even before COVID-19 is something that I'm sure you all know. It's information knowledge. This knowledge can be acquired easily from any device at home or from work or from wherever you are. So why do you have to come to the university, especially for the undergraduate degrees, if information can be so easily accessed anywhere and everywhere? So this is one threat that we needed to address. We have the advanced technology and the implementation of advanced technology in online degrees, and not only online degrees, but online degrees from extremely good universities like Harvard, like Stanford, like Georgia Tech. If I can get an online degree from there, why should I come to Tel Aviv University or any university in Israel from that matter? And that's something that we needed also to address. And then we have this new generation, the needs and wants of this new generation of students that we maybe typically is the word I want to say, but we know that this is a generation that they tweet, they don't talk, they don't debate, they tweet, they tell stories through Instagram. They're very proud of being ADHD and I have a short attention span. It's like, this is something that they talk about like this is a compliment. They talk about Ritalin like it's a vitamin. I didn't even know about Ritalin until I started communication disorders. So this is definitely a different generation. They have different needs. They're proud of different things. And truthfully, as a professor, as a teacher, I didn't care about that, which is a really big mistake, because these are the people I'm supposed to teach. I have to understand what talks to them. What do they do? I'm not saying I need to do what they want, but definitely I have to understand what it is that will engage them to do better in the things I would like them to do. So what we were addressed is how do we turn these threats, these are three major threats, but I'm sure there were others, into opportunities and making sure that we're still relevant. And I think Tel Aviv University, because it's top at the research, there's so much from the students to learn from those professors, from those researchers that are developed or that are producing the data, that are producing new things, that are finding out new things. Then we have to make sure that there's this constant engagement with them and they're not running out to other places. But it's not only that, it's because we believe that the university has an important role, and sometimes we forgot about it. So what the university decided to do, I mean, there were for about 10, 12 years, there've been two major units that supported different technology in teaching and learning, innovations in teaching and learning, but it was more boutique style of doing things, not as a major vision of university. One of the pillars that the university will be proud of, that it's leading the way in a certain thing. And that's why they've decided to establish an academic unit that will provide the vision of what it is, the added value of the university in this new era. And once we know or we think what it is, how do we implement it and implement it? Not by talking, but by doing. So as Jennifer mentioned, we definitely believe that one of the added values of the new era of the university of frontal or some kind of an interactive learning and not only an online degree is that there are many soft skills in addition to the need to excel in knowledge that are critical today in the world of in the working world, but not only in real life as well. And when you talk to many of the high-tech companies in Israel, I'm sure in the I can't say in the United States because I haven't talked to them, but I have talked to the ones in Israel, and they all say the same thing. We can always give the knowledge to our workers. We can give them courses. Some of the actually, we prefer to give them our own very specific courses. We don't need a big mind in terms of the knowledge. But what we do want is all these lists of things that I've listed here. We want critical thinking. We want people to know how to make decisions, not to run every second and ask for something, to be able to adapt to different situations, to be creative, be open to be critical, but also be open to accept criticism, definitely have good writing skills and verbal skills to present things, have good teamwork, communication between people, be able to manage your time, do independent study, be able to filter out from all the available knowledge what it is that relevant for the project that needed. These are a lot of soft skills that are really important for all these working places. And this is our goal now, to integrate them into the coursework, not to teach them separately from the courses. This should be part of the coursework, but to be able to assess them separately in order to also follow up development in these areas. So in a way, what we're asking our faculty members now is to redefine our graduates. What it is, what are the soft skills that you think that are needed? So for example, engineers, obviously they have a lot of analytical thinking maybe, but do they have the ability to write? If they want to present, do they know how to present? These are things that need to be taken, and vice versa in other disciplines. What we definitely need is personalized learning, like I mentioned before. We want to maximize the learning potential from each student. When we say maximize learning potential and personalized learning, it means that we want to have a lot of options available. Give them options in terms of when they can study, during the day, during the night. Is it going to be on campus, off campus? Can it be somewhere else? Only, what about density, personalized learning within the content? Like if I'm not doing well, the content will lead me to something that I haven't understood yet. So I need a little bit more strength in some areas, while those who are doing very well can continue and in their own pace. So it is also using our technology to be able to maximize learning, both in terms of the content, in terms of the location, in terms of the time, and give them all the opportunities, because some prefer blended learning and some prefer offline and some prefer on campus. We still don't know what is the best formula, what will give us the best thing. But one thing we know for sure, that we need to give as many options as possible to take information and every time reevaluate ourselves, because this is a dynamic process. Active learning, definitely we need much more active learning. It means more in terms of more tasks, more projects, more interactions with the students, between students and with the faculty. So as you can see, we have kind of a vision. And of course, I didn't say it, but for me, it goes without saying, is that technology is an important part of it. Because a lot of these things we can use technology to advance, maybe take time from the teachers, staff members, less time for them to do the teaching, so they can spend more time with the students one-on-one or in small groups. So technology is really important for the practice. You know, practice makes perfect. You don't need a staff member to be with them, but old habits are not easy to change, as you know. University of Tel Aviv is a big ship. No one likes their cheese moved, but the COVID came and it did move our cheese. Now, this is where I have to say, give a lot of credit to both the units, support units, technological, pedagogical, technological units that were here that gave support and had the right infrastructure to have us move online immediately, but also to the professors, also to the staff members that until that day said, we will never do this. And then overnight, they did it. So clearly, there's a lot to learn from it, that we could do it, and we are adapters, and it gave the staff members that confidence that it can be done, and not only confidence that it can be done well. And that with good pedagogy that we kept giving all the time and use of technology, we can optimize learning. But technology cannot replace bad teaching, as you know. And all the polls that we did has showed that there's an immense variability in students' preference to the method of learning. So we clearly need to give a variety of methods of learning, not stick to one thing, not only online or this, but we have to really think about each course, what we think is the right one, but give a little bit more opportunities in order to assess what is good for the learning. Social interactions are a must, and we've come up with ideas on how to do that. And what's clear to us is that I think if this is across campus, that we are not going to be back where we were BC or before Corona. Now, you think that is very obvious, but we just came, one of our members, staff members, came off a big conference yesterday from engineering, from Zurich and other engineering schools in Europe. And they definitely said they're still in the pandemic, and they definitely said, we want to go back to where we were. We don't want to do anything different. And we've decided this is not what we're doing. We're going to take the good things from what we did before Corona, but continue advancing it to the things that we believe should be in future learning. So what do we have been doing? We now have going on 10 new projects. The first project, which has just started this month, it's called Hybrid Plus. We've developed a scalable, affordable, and sustainable process, what we call SaaS, for implementing digital technology. So about 30% of the course has to be offline or really heavily implemented with technology for, let's say, practice or for other things. And this is in order to promote learning and soft skills. Each one of these courses has to promote a certain soft skill. And this is going to be in 30% of the courses on campus within 3 years. So we are hoping to be able to make those changes in additional 900 courses. We're now the first 50 courses. We have another 100 courses in the summer. The beginning is a little bit slow because we have to learn the ropes. We have to see what works and what's not, but we have an amazing teams. We've integrated our units into one unit now. And from what I'm hearing in the other universities, I think we're now on the lead on this. We have the hybrid premium, where we're taking, the faculties are taking selected courses, the big ones, the ones of hundreds of students, and we're transforming them to high quality learning experience. Because there's not much interaction that can be done there, they're going to have more like of a MOOC type of a high quality type of filming. But we're going to make sure that they need to have also learning, some kind of interactive learning. And here it could be totally digital just because of the number of students. And these are usually courses that come back every year, the same course like Algebra 1, Algebra 2. And so there's no reason that a course like that would not lend itself to that kind of hybrid premium that we call. We're now just started a new pilot for personalized content and AI learning. We've taken a couple of courses that have already started it, but we're continuing it with the help of our AI Data Science Center, and we're trying now to interest outside companies to develop the content in a personalized manner. As I said before, the student progresses based on what he knows, both his performance. If he's interested in something else, he'll be able to go to something else. But also, if he's not doing well, the software um, will understand, will know, will identify what are the weak points of this student and can give him more support on those weak points. And there's certain courses that lends themselves to this type of learning, and that's what we're doing. As far as you know, there are not many like that. There's certain books, there's software available, but they're very limited. And we hope that this will be really something new that we can expand on for more courses. But as I said, this is the beginning. Hopefully we'll have more to say about that. Just so our first course that we're trying it, by the way, is neuroanatomy. And we're hoping that because the Professor Ido Tavo has already started this, he has a 3D, he's done a lot of 3D images. And instead of going down to the dissection center, we can, student can learn a lot just from advancing within all the 3D images. But again, needs to identify what it is in the structure, in the anatomy, in the function that he does not know enough, the student, and the software will direct him to what's missing. We also have personalized skill learning. So over all the courses, they're going to be, as I said, we're striving to separate. This is what we're building now, the assessment of the soft skills versus the knowledge. Not easy to do it, but we have competent people now that are on it. And the point of the end point is that each student will have a profile over his courses, not only on his knowledge, but only on his soft skills. So that will give him some kind of profile on what he needs to develop more, what is more developed, and it gives him some kind of profile for his usage. There are some privacy issues that we're dealing with. We do have somebody, a staff member from the with the law background and helping us on the privacy issues. And I think that here too, things that were not allowed 5 years ago are now much more lenient on this as well. And we're hopefully that the fantasy is that the student will be able to see on his iPhone or on his, whatever his wristwatch is, to see where he is, what he has to do better, what he can do less, and improve it. And we'll be able to support where he needs those improvements. We definitely believe that the students can teach us a lot. As we say, every few years is a big difference in terms of what interests them, what they do, how they do it. And we need them to tell us also, to teach us things about how they think they would like things to be taught. It doesn't mean that we're going to use it or we're going to adopt it, but we definitely would like their thinking. And so we've now developed, are in the process of developing a course that will start next year, where we'll give the students academic background from all campus, but their project will be to take one area that they learned and they think they would have liked to teach it different because they think the students can learn it better. And hopefully from them, we'll get some new ideas. We already know that they're very savvy with technology. So between that and their ideas, I'm sure that will help. Teaching staff communities. This is something that we've realized is really important. It turns out that we have a lot of courses that are interrelated and very close. For example, ethics course. Almost every discipline has an ethics course, but obviously adapted to that discipline. But the background is very similar. So we're now making groups of staff members with same very common theme that they can interact, they can exchange ideas, they can maybe develop asynchrony material that's relevant to them all, but the face-to-face part is what they're adapting that particular discipline. And there's already things going on that are very interesting. Another teaching staff community that we've developed is on virtual reality in archaeology, where they visit all kinds of sites with their 3D instead of physically being there, especially now with the COVID days. traveling is not that great. It turns out that in architecture as well, once they used to go to the actual sites, the building sites, now because of the corona, it's not so great. So they have the, they take pictures from above and transfer to 3D. So there's a lot of courses that are using 3D, and they can actually, we see a lot of interaction between the professors, things that were not done before. So the interdisciplinary research that we have is definitely now interdisciplinary teaching as well. We're thinking of alternative admission criteria. At this point, we're assessing what it is, what should we be, especially now that we don't know what matriculation exams and what they reflect in these COVID days. Is it only about the knowledge that they accumulate over the high school years, or is there more that we're interested in? And now we're doing a lot of analytics to do that. The whole area of analytics and assessment of the student themselves, the courses, the different methods of teaching, the way to compare it. We're now recruited somebody to look at that in order to help us come with evidence based on what we, the whole process is an extremely dynamic process. We don't know what's right or wrong. We just heard yesterday that in Europe, some prestigious places want to go to where they were before. So we clearly, in order to make those changes, it is important that we assess and make sure that it works for us. And we will continue the awards for novel teaching initiatives, where we will try to promote, give incentives to those teachers that think differently. And even though it's a small project, but definitely sometimes we can apply it to other places. And last but not least, we are now in the process of smart classes. We have autonomy. We have now autonomy cameras placed in 120 classrooms. You know, the camera follows the lecturer, but there's so many other additional things that are worthwhile doing in order to make the learning experience much better. It's not enough to say, oh, let's teach them both in class while we're transmitting outside. If we don't give them a good learning experience, they're not going to like it. So these are things that we are now building on, but there's much more to do, because if indeed the whole idea of having a little more smaller classes in order to develop those soft skills, clearly the spatial space has to be different, and also equipped with audiovisual equipment. So I took this picture from Penn State. I'm not sure what they have. I'm waiting for the lockdown or the pandemic to move and we can travel more. So I would like to see what they're doing. But definitely, this is something that we should be striving, providing more infrastructure. We have an ongoing project which is out for high schools, and the point is that a lot of the ideas that I'm saying here, we're already providing them through the MOOCs to the high schools in the periphery of Israel, in order for these kids to be much better prepared for academia and to give them that confidence that they can do it. So we have a vision, and it's to apply innovation and creativity to challenge the status quo of academic teaching. This is definitely what we're trying to do, and we have a good campus to go with it. So we believe that with our hard work and with your generous support, we will be able to apply innovative and creative thinking that is characteristics of Israel as a startup nation, to challenge the tenets of the traditional academic teaching, and to develop teaching methods and strategies to meet the requirements of the 21st century. I had to put the flag on because last week was our Independence Day. And I think that teaching at the higher education was behind in many ways, but I think we definitely now have a lot of motivation, energy, and a real actually want and thirst of change that we're seeing here on campus. But as I said, it's a process, and we don't know what's the right things. We have to make sure a lot of different things are available, so we can assess them and see what works for us, for what course, and for what discipline. So thank you very much, and toda rabah.
Thank you, Liat. I have so many questions that I want to ask you, but we also have so many questions from our listeners. So I am going to jump right to those. You've really given us a tremendous amount to think about, and really acknowledging that this is sort of a revolution in the way university teaching and learning has happened for history. So you clearly are a trailblazer. Okay, to jump right into questions, we have a question from one of our listeners uh, asking about children with comorbidities and how you modify teaching or learning programs if a child has things such as autism spectrum disorder, Down syndrome, hyperactivity. What kind of modifications are necessary?
Are we talking about the higher education now? Are we
Uh,
talking about because we do have at the university, we have a program for for different disabilities. So for example, we do have a program for autistic adults, or you know, they are on the higher end of the spectrum, so they are able to they are able to study, but they're getting support. They have support of people who provide them what they need. Again, what are the strengths? What are it's a personalized thing. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? And give them the support where they need, and help them learn with their strengths. So in Tel Aviv University, we have that. We have, for example, autistic, a special program that provides support for them. I'm not sure if the question was meant for the higher education or for regular.
Since our listener did not specify, we will go on to our next
Okay.
question. Again, on this topic of learning differences, in order to maximize students' potentials with students who have different issues such as ADHD, dyslexia, how do you, in this model where you're having a combination of live and hybrid, sort of what allowances do you have
Okay.
to take?
So maybe I wasn't clear on something, and I would like to clarify it. When I say that there's differences in learning, even before we go into the different comorbidities, even when we talk about normal kids or normal adults, normal teenagers, those who enter young adults, those who enter higher education, there is a huge amount of variability in the ways they study and what makes them work or learn, even before we even start dealing with those who have additional problems. So, for example, when we have students, cultural background would be the perfect thing. We have students from the Arab, we have students from the ultra-Orthodox. These are our students that are healthy students. They don't have any comorbidities, but their background is such that we need to adapt to what's easier for them or less well for them. And this is something, that's the whole point, that if we only give them face to face, then there are always those students who say, but I learn much better at home when I see only recordings and I can see it in my pace and go back and rewind and rewind. So what we would like to do is to have as many things available. You will have both, you'll be able to come to campus and study, but when you come to campus and study, you'll also be recorded, so you can see it at home in your own pace. We want to give you incentive to come to campus to study, because this is when you can have the questions and be one-on-one or have interactions with your peer students when you do a certain project. So these are the things, we are taking these into account, and clearly, as if we have the more options we have, we can address more of the problems. Now, once you go to comorbidities, that's already a different story. But most 30,000 students at Tel Aviv universities, the majority of them are healthy students, and yet the variation is enormous.
This makes me feel, it sounds like personalized, the approach people take to personalized medicine, personalized learning,
Exactly.
many of the
And
same.
and and why not? Because we know from our practice as clinicians that children acquire skills at their own pace, they have their own formula. You don't give one formula to all, it doesn't work. It works on some, but there's so many others that fall. And we want to maximize the potential of each of these students. And each one will get hopefully to the not only to the end line, but to much more than that, because we're developing thinking skills. They're also going to be better researchers in my perspective.
You bring up learning and how the brain works, and that the natural question is about MindEducate. The MindEducate program in the School of Neuroscience, do you work with or interact with MindEducate?
Well, the MindEducate, yes, we do. That's we're part of it as well. Clearly, there's certain if there's things that they're developed there and they're applicable, we will definitely apply it. Don't forget that the mandate that I got is to make a change on campus, not on a small scale, but a big scale. So we have to do a few things. We have to see what works on a big scale, and at the same time, look at the little things, and that's what we're looking at, including MindEducate, and find out what it is that can make changes, and then think, is it scalable or not? And to what extent can we apply it to the other courses? So the answer is yes.
Everything you presented sounds like a revolution in learning. Not, it's
But it's not
changing.
really.
I guess evolution, upending the traditional, come to university and sit in these multi-hundred student, 101 level lecture courses, and not always a lot of interaction with professors, and more interaction as you go higher up in the subjects. Does this sort of change in deliverance of teaching, utilizing online and different technical tools, does this mean that all these large campus buildings and extensions and teaching staffs will be reduced? Or is there less of a need for such large infrastructure and such a large footprint?
Well, you're asking questions. You're putting me in a bad position, because I don't want to speak in the name of the management of Tel Aviv University. I'll speak for what I think. Okay. Yes, I think there will be a reduction. I don't think there'll be a reduction in the overall space. I think there'll be a change in the way we use the space. So if we had a big hall room, I think what we would like to do is make it have it in a way that it can be easily transformed into smaller units where groups of students can sit and work on a project together. So at the same time, you can have that room as a conference room, but it can be transformed into small groups, because I personally believe that these small groups are where the students are really learning, where they're applying their knowledge and obtaining all these soft skills. This is much similar to what they'll be doing in the working place, wherever they'll work.
Yeah, it seems like the natural evolution of university learning, because for so long we've heard about the skills that students, learn at school, which are memorizing and learning specific information, not necessarily what they need in their careers, in the sort of world of work, where they need to be able to, as you discussed, be able to present, be able to take constructive criticism. They need to be able to learn concepts and ideas on a more macro level, and adapt them to the more micro, because so much information now is easily searchable. It's not about memorization, but really learning how to learn and how to think.
Definitely. By the way, as a clinician, communication disorder, memorizing is an important skill, because it uses the brain. Brain is a muscle. So memorizing by itself is good practice for the brain. You don't want it to be the only thing that you do to acquire knowledge. But this is something that, let's say the Cheder, the ultra-Orthodox, when they study, they memorize it. it's a very good brain practice, but you need it in order to be able to apply it to all the other things. And yes, I also think that uh, I think what you said, that it's an evolution, yes, because when you think about it, this is how people used to learn once, to discuss, to talk, the ancient Greek ways. Somewhere we lost it on the way. People didn't are not able to express their thoughts. Verbal discussions are extremely important because they develop your thinking, they develop the whole thing. And I think the big change right now that we're seeing on campus is that the teaching members are stopping to think what it is that I want my students to know in addition, or to have, what kind of skills should they acquire, and that they're incorporating into their course. So it's with our help, with our unit's help, when they do that, all of a sudden you're getting courses with much more added value.
So if we think about different learning styles and students having different learning styles, and you talked a lot about different interests and different ways people learn, different skill sets, how do you make the assessment of these different styles in order to provide the most appropriate methods of learning or teaching?
Uh, I don't know yet. We're now in the process of having someone who's helping us into these analytics and assessment, and in order for us to obtain the information. There's different types of information. It's going to be from the analytics, from the Moodle, from the platform. It's going to be from polls. It's going to be from the grades. All these things will have to be integrated. It has to be from the students, from the teacher, and we'll have to see. We'll have to assess it periodically and make it better, both the assessment and the conclusions. We're researchers, so we know how to assess. It's only now we're applying it to something that we weren't required to do it before. So this is one of the major goals.
You showed us a slide of a smart building at Penn. Can you tell us all, for those of us who are not so familiar with smart classes and smart buildings, can you tell us a little bit more about what that means?
Well, when you're from a simplistic point of view, it means that you're providing audiovisual technology in order to promote the learning. So anything from autonomous cameras, the blackboards, anything that will improve the learning experience technologically wise is a smart class. So it could be something simple, only good microphones, good cameras, but it could be additional things like smart blackboards, as I said, classes that transform easily from frontal to group learning. But when you look at it from ideally, wouldn't you like to also to have those classes that you come in and already you recognize the student and immediately all the information goes and you know exactly when he was online and offline and when he was in class? We don't know these things right now. These are things that are not, so I'm not saying it in the sense of being the big brother to see where the students are. This is where privacy issue comes in. But this is a lot of data that when you have it, you can analyze it and get information. And this is what this is more of a long run. This is more of a fantasy at this point. We do have smart classes. The beginning was smart classes, but we would like to do more in terms of getting data that will give the student, even if it's only for his sake, how much time he spent in class, what he did, all this stuff. This is just analytics that shouldn't be that hard to provide.
And theoretically, they're seeing it already. I know every morning when I wake up, I get this email push from Cortana and my sort of Microsoft Outlook app that tells me about time for collaborating and time I'm spending working. And do you want to see this report that you're going to be accessing in your 10 o'clock meeting? So it's definitely timely. And I know I could speak for all of us in saying that we're glad that you're at the helm of this at the university, because we know how important it is. And we know how important evolution and learning, given how much we've evolved, certainly in the last COVID Corona period. Unfortunately, the time once again has run away from us. We thank you for being so generous with your time and for sharing your insights today. To our friends who have tuned in from around the world, thank you for being with us. We continue to be proud to bring cutting edge work done at Tel Aviv University directly to all of you with our webinars and to give you a window into how the university is leading the way with educational change and development. As usual, we will be sending a link to our webinar library after we're finished today, where you can view today's presentation, as well as the more than 60 webinars and free online classes that reside in our library from the past year. Wishing everyone continued good health and a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.